Alright, today's video, I'm going to fly it solo today. There's a lot of topics that I want to talk about every week, and whenever I do the podcast with my guests, I want to make it about my guests. I don't want to make it about myself, so I guess I want to make a dedicated news portion of the channel. And news and basically just online questioning and responses also. So, I didn't want to make a individual videos just basically scripting it out. I just wanted to basically express loosely how I feel and go into more detail and basically just go off topic. I'm going to focus on this one topic in particular, and then afterwards, perhaps something I've been holding back for a while. So, I like to go on Reddit, Facebook, ask questions, and most of the time I get hilarious responses. People sometimes they just get upset about anything, and so Reddit's pretty much the perfect place for that. And Facebook, I just prefer Reddit because Facebook sometimes, I don't know. Facebook, I think it's probably got more or something. I don't know. My posts seem to drown a lot faster in Facebook compared to Reddit. I'm not sure what the difference is. So, the topic I'm going to work around today is comparing Elden Ring with God of War Ragnarok. If you're wondering why I didn't do Horizon Forbidden West, is because I didn't like Horizon Zero Dawn. It looked like the same game, and I didn't, as much as I didn't like in Zero Dawn, I didn't really feel like it was worth playing Forbidden West. Heck, I don't even know if I would play it if it was offered to me for free. I personally have no interest in it because it just, like I said, it just looks like the exact same game to me. I don't see any kind of difference whatsoever. But anyway, so I asked Reddit. I posted on several groups because I wanted as many responses as possible. Some people actually get really mad about that. They're like, "Oh, you're spamming." I'm like, "I'm just posting this once per group. It's not like I'm posting several times for each group." And so I don't really get the anger towards that. I just want to get as many responses as I can. I'm not trying to farm for karma, whatever it's called on Reddit. I don't even know what it does, to be exact. So I will be using 10 key aspects in this comparison with some extra categories at the end just for fun. I hope everyone enjoys this, and let's have a nice discussion about it in the comment section later on if you guys feel like it. And I'll gladly discuss and perhaps maybe change my mind on a few things. Now you gotta understand, a lot of these are very close, so you can kind of place them however you want to. But I'll definitely explain. I actually put a score down as I went with Elden Ring 0. I started out with Elden Ring 0, God of War Ragnarok 0, and I'll let you know the final score. At the end, I was like, man, towards the middle, I was like, man, is Ragnarok gonna tie with Elden Ring? But the last few aspects definitely was in Elden Ring's favor. So the first one is controls. This is based off a website. These 10 key aspects. I might have to later on do some more research on what we can use to compare with every video game. Now, of course, every video game is not going to have a story like Pong. What in the world are you going to say about Pong? So really, let's just say you compare Pong with Super Mario Bros. 3. Well, the story-wise, Super Mario Bros. 3 is going to win because they actually have somewhat of a story, and Pong doesn't. It doesn't make Pong, worse. It just means that Pong just was developed without a story. It was a very old game, and of course, someone out there can say Pong is better than Super Mario Bros. 3. Someone can find that game more valuable with their time, like with their significant other. What if they have sentimental value towards Pong? You just never know. There's a lot of it's just subjective. And what I'm about to say is my opinion, and a lot of people seem to miss that. A lot of people on Reddit seem to believe that this is fact, that I'm trying to project this as fact, and it's cemented in stone, whatever. So the first one is controls. This one's a very tough one because controls is basically just handling, just mechanic wise. And I wish I could explain my position a little bit better. I typed these in really quickly because it was somewhat of a busy day, but I really, really wanted to get this out. Maybe I should have saved it for a more, a less busier day. So what I wrote was, this is a pretty close call, but something must be superior. Both games handle extremely well and are pretty tight registering wise. However, I must give it to Elden Ring mainly because of the cinematic padding from Ragnarok that totally restricts the player from the core gameplay for long periods of time. And that's all I wrote. I should have written a lot more than that. Um, However, I just wanted to press on. So it's not just the cinematic padding. That is a negative to me personally. I mentioned that in the review. Oh, by the way, spoilers. Spoiler alert. I'm going to go into some deep spoilers for God of War Ragnarok. So if you do not want to be spoiled for God of War Ragnarok, I would suggest not listening any further. Because I'm not going to restrict myself to express my opinion on Ragnarok in this video. And Elden Ring is, I don't know. I mean, what can be spoiled about Elden Ring, really? But I'll just go ahead and say Elden Ring spoilers as well. And so, Elden Ring, it feels so much better compared to the other games, obviously. However, a lot of general gamers do have trouble adapting to the gameplay. But does that mean the controls are bad? Does it mean that the controls are... This is a very interesting question that I'm thinking of just now. Just because you have to adapt to the controls to learn how to navigate them better, does that mean that the controls are bad? What does bad controls indicate exactly? Does it indicate wonkiness? Like if you move your character around and your character just kind of twitches as you move, is that considered bad controls? I mean, I guess there should be some kind of level of bad controls. Let's just say in Frogun. Yes, I'm going to mention Frogun. I've mentioned Frogun in pretty much every single podcast because that game is amazing. But however, while I was trying to platinum it, right now I can't really platinum it because there's a huge bug in the game. And I addressed it with the developer. The developer is awesome. He responds to my to my messages, and I told him, I was like, "Hey man, there is a boss attack where the wave is up higher and basically goes up as high as the player, and you can't simply walk underneath it like you're supposed to with the top wave. But this is the bottom wave, and for some reason it goes up, so I cannot avoid it properly." And I let him know. I sent him some video footage of proof that it happened because I was recording it because I like to use Frogun footage in podcast clips. So I addressed it to the developer, and he seemed kind of bummed out because he thought he fixed everything. And of course, me, for some reason, if there are glitches in a video game, I'm going to find them. I had a lot of people with God of War Ragnarok when I uploaded that glitch video. People are like, "This is impossible. Ragnarok didn't have any glitches when I went through it." I'm like, it's just bad luck with me. If there are glitches, I'm going to find them. And I really regret not making a glitch video for Elden Ring because I definitely found glitches in that. With just a torrent. A lot of common glitches like torrents remaining there. I think there was actually one where I got up. Maybe I can still make a Elden Ring glitch video. I guess it's not too late. I think I've deleted some though, unfortunately. However, before I lose track, so in that boss rush mode, for some reason, the controls get wacky. And I don't think it's intentional. I didn't mention it to the developer because I don't know if I'm not 100% sure it's my controller or not, but I've never seen my controller do that. But it seemed to happen every once in a while where the controller just kind of just jolts a little bit, where it knocks my character off tracking when I'm circling around the boss. So, does that warrant bad controls? Does Surgeon Simulator is that bad controls? If so, what I'm trying to say is there any game to where you cannot adapt to bad controls? You got Octodad. The controls are very awkward, but once you kind of get used to it, it's not that bad. So, it's kind of a weird subject. And so, I think Elden Ring plays just fine. I think it plays perfectly, nearly perfectly. I had some issues with, I did have issues with delay. But it's so minor. It's basically just split second reaction time sort of thing. And it was in Bloodborne a little bit, but I noticed it definitely a lot with particular bosses when I tried to time a particular attack. And I would press the button and nothing would happen for you. It's like you just time will just slow down and you would just notice that you didn't. And I knew I had infinite stamina. Well, not infinite stamina. I don't know why I said that. I knew I had stamina left. And for some reason the game just didn't register in time, and so that was very frustrating. But it only happened every once in a while. It happened a lot with Leonine Misbegotten, and what was that other boss? I don't know. It happened with a few other ones. Maybe with Radagon. I think it happened with Radagon a lot. When I wasn't parrying him. When I started parrying Radagon, the fight went smooth. Um, so anyway, it kind of got down to the bottom of the barrel when it came to comparing controls with Elden Ring and Ragnarok. Ragnarok had I didn't like the dodging in Ragnarok, and I feel like that's very important to nail. I don't think there are many iframes, if there are any, in Ragnarok. Also, Kratos is a very heavy character. Moving him around and everything, you can see why this is a very close call, and a lot of people were very upset about this one subject in particular. So you can see where I was very conflicted. But I had to basically go with the cinematic padding because the game takes you away from the core gameplay for so long, and I kind of had to implement that into the controls. Also, the quick time events are a lot worse in Ragnarok than they have ever been. I don't even remember them being in the 2018 version, but I'm sure they were. Um, they were just implemented so much better in the older God of War games, especially with number three and Ascension. I think Ascension really took it to an interesting place. Especially with the joy, I really miss the joystick turns. I think a lot of people didn't like those, but I love the joystick turns, quick time events. So ultimately, I had to pick Elden Ring for the controls. It's really hard for me to really pick Ragnarok when I just didn't enjoy it when I didn't enjoy it most of the time. But once again, like I said, it's very close. If you wanted to discuss how to dissect controls for this comparison, I'll definitely let me know and we'll discuss it. And maybe in a podcast, if someone wants to join the podcast, we'll definitely discuss it there. All right, so basically, Elden Ring 1, Ragnarok 0. Aesthetics. This is one of my favorite ones. So what I wrote on this Reddit post was, once again, another very close call. Both games are absolutely beautiful, but Elden Ring has one thing over Ragnarok, that's organic style, where the world feels more natural and deep. Ragnarok gets too Fisherprice for me at times, which took me out of immersion several times, unfortunately. Now, Fisherprice is a very funny term that I like to use when it comes to when movies and video games kind of look like play sets from a toy section. I remember calling Frozen a Fisher-Price movie because every set piece just looked like it was just set up in a little girl's bedroom, and the characters have simply moved on to another set of film. And God of War really feels like that. And I've heard Ragnarok addressed as addressed as a Universal Studios ride or a Disney World ride, and that's actually a very fair comparison. And I can definitely see where heck, the game even turns into a log ride, for God's sakes. You get into this log and you just ride around for like, God, it felt like 30 minutes. Probably not 30 minutes, but it felt like it took forever. I was like, why is this taking so long? Surely the game doesn't need to load that much. Why in the world are we having to move around in this log on this ride? Yeah. So, but that's kind of going off aesthetics. So yeah, I mean, Ragnarok just it kind of felt artificial. Some areas looked really good, like I think the dwarf village probably was the best, was actually the most well designed area, but everything else felt really artificial, and very bland. And so, and later on, I just got tired of looking at the game because it was just so mundane. Everything kind of just ended up looking like a Windows background, And Elden Ring was just every single moment was beautiful. I can't think of a single moment where the game just looks absolutely mundane. I mean, they absolutely mastered the artistic vision of Elden Ring. So Elden Ring just blasted aesthetics out of the water with this one. I mean, there was no contest. I mean, there, like I said, there are moments where Ragnarok is a beautiful game, but yeah, I just cannot give it to aesthetics. I just um, one thing though, I get really tired of seeing in open world games, and Elden Ring is definitely guilty of this. Is just a area surrounded by water. Why are we still doing that? Grand Theft Auto. Did Red Dead Redemption 2 do that? Maybe not. I don't know. I think I would rather have the out of bounds pushing the player away from MX Unleashed than to have a whole area surrounded by water. Just tell the player you can't go over there anymore or something like that, or have some kind of excuse like a humongous bear will rip you to shreds if you go out of bounds. Then we need to get more creative with these open world games when it comes to the out of bounds area. Why in the world do we continue to do this whole infinite water um, distance? Mafia did it. Just Cause. I mean, pretty much every single Grand Theft Auto game. Um, Far Cry. I think every Far Cry game. Maybe Far Cry 5 did something different. So anyway, I want that to change. Show me an open world game that I think Skyrim doesn't do that actually, but I don't like Skyrim, so I'm not going to give it credit. Nah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I have to give Skyrim credit for that. I think it's just mountains, which does make Skyrim seem humongous. Um, I'm so afraid of trying Skyrim again. I'm so afraid if I try it again, I'm just going to get bored again. I need to try to. I'm trying to find here. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic again. I want to find ways to play games that I didn't like in an organic difficulty wave where I'm going to enjoy it. Because a lot of games just hold your hand. And I went to Red Dead Redemption 2 and just disabled everything assist wise. Now, usually when I play a game, I turn aim assist off. I always do that because I cannot stand that automatic aiming. It throws me off, and I can't stand how simplistic it is. So it goes off immediately. Mafia, my goodness. Um, Mafia had some aiming issues, and I had to play around with it until it fit my preferences of aiming. And once I got it down to exactly the way I wanted to, the game was absolutely beautiful to play. If you haven't played the Mafia remaster, I highly recommend it. One of my favorite open world games of all time. Even though there's not a whole lot of stuff to do in it, it is so incredibly well done, and I wish we could see more open world games like that. Similar to Grand Theft Auto 3. Why can't we have more open worlds like that? Something that's not bloated with a bunch of side missions, bloated with just a bunch of nonsense, hand-holding mission markers. One thing I would love to see is a Grand Theft Auto style game where the world organically directs you to where you need to go. Like newspaper, signs, a character tells you need to go somewhere, look for that road, and eventually maybe you can gain a GPS. Or maybe if this takes place in the 70s, you got to use a map. I would just, oh man, there's so much potential sorry, for this concept, and it's just not being done. If there's a game like that out there, please let me know, because I would love to look at it. Man, I mean, you can also, you don't even have to make a humongous map. Make something somewhat small, but make it seem humongous by using organic direction, and make guns, make certain elements really hard to get. People don't seem to understand that gaining something through earning something is so satisfying. It's like with Driver, the beginning of Driver with the tutorial. Um, so the tutorial is notorious for being extremely difficult. I just happen to really love it because you got to earn that passage into the game. It's a awesome gatekeeping design that I absolutely love and I miss in video games. And Dark Souls 3 did it with Undex Gundyr. So many people had trouble defeating him to get into the game. And we just don't see that very often. I want to see more gatekeeping, more hardcore gatekeeping aspects like that, because it is very well appreciated by people like, I guess, me. I guess I don't know. I just love stuff like that because it just feels like I earned the right to play the game, and I just don't think it's very well appreciated these days, unfortunately. I mean, just imagine God of War Ragnarok where you had to do something to get into the game, like fight a humongous boss fight that lasts, that. I mean, yeah, you get to fight Thor, but there are just so many checkpoints during that boss. It doesn't really feel like you earn anything. Uh, I will admit that the cinematics during that fight were incredible, but I need to get back on topic. Sorry, I veered off way too much. All right, so Elden Ring 2, Ragnarok 0. Believe me, Ragnarok does get some points. So Elden Ring isn't a huge wave of domination here. I wanted to play fair. I had to keep an open mind. I realized that I didn't really care for Ragnarok, but I loved Elden Ring. So, but still, I had to make sure that everything was fair. And we'll get into the subcategories later. These are just the 10 key elements for gaming. All right, so sound. Man, I think I'm probably going to get a lot of spit for this one because a lot of people love Elden Ring on my channel. So what I wrote was, these first few key aspects are difficult for me personally, especially this one. You know what? Ragnarok gets this one because I had a lot of complaints about how the music was handled in Elden Ring, so Ragnarok gets the first point for being super memorable in the sound department. With that being said, Elden Ring has fantastic music. I love some of the tracks. But it doesn't really do anything sound effect wise. I feel like Ragnarok is very fresh in this department, a lot more than Elden Ring. I'm not saying, like I said, a lot of people, whenever some a game wins in a category, I'm not saying the other game sucks. I'm just saying that the game just is a little bit better at this particular department. And I feel like I appreciated the sound effects a lot more in Ragnarok than in Elden Ring. And I love the sound effects in Elden Ring. Just the sound effects of just simply, and this includes music, by the way. The music was absolutely immersive in God of War Ragnarok, with some cutscenes, and it definitely added an incredible atmosphere. And I have to give that to Ragnarok, definitely. I remember more music from Ragnarok than I do in Elden Ring, and the sound effects are just really satisfying. And like I said, Elden Ring doesn't really do anything entirely new with this aspect. It's basically the same. It's still good, but I feel like Ragnarok had a fresher take. And I guess I'm still kind of conflicted on this one, but I just wanted to give it to Ragnarok because the music was just incredible. It's the music I prefer more, actually. Elden Ring is great and everything. But I don't find myself listening to it. I base it on what I like to listen to when I'm going down the road. I don't listen to Elden Ring music when I'm going down the road. I listen to stuff like Shadow of the Colossus, and that's basically why Ragnarok wins, because it's just a personal preference in music. I like how dramatic. I just love dramatic music, where you have a woman doing vocals that sounds very sad, and that's why Ragnarok wins, because I just love that style of music. Elden Ring is just kind of I don't know. I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's just something that's more like, I don't know. I can't think of the word right now, really. It's just not. All I have to say is it's just not what I prefer music wise. All right, going down to world. So Elden Ring 2, Ragnarok 1. The world. So what I wrote was, not to get this confused with aesthetics or level design, but this is mainly about generalization of atmosphere and circumstance. This one also goes to Ragnarok due to the incredible presentation of the story, which Elden Ring is very loose and subjective about, which I do love. However, I did enjoy the overall experience of Ragnarok's realm despite its many flaws in other departments. Now, this one was very questionable. Like, world, what in the world, what in the world, how in the world do I explain this one? Because you got level design and aesthetics. I thought that was all included, but apparently just world is like, let's just say, for example, Twisted Metal Black. That world is incredibly dark and disturbing, but we cannot address the level design and aesthetics exactly. It's just more like the tone of the characters and just the situation of what's going on currently where the game takes place. And I have to give that to Ragnarok. And this is once again another close one because it's also really good in Elden Ring. However, I feel like it's more tense in Ragnarok, regardless of the bland, the terrible, just the anticlimactic result in Ragnarok. I have to admit that the tension was really nice. I didn't feel any story in tension in Elden Ring because there's really basically no story. There's just story elements placed in Elden Ring for the player to build on their own. So really, it comes to tension that wins for me personally in Ragnarok because there are a lot of sections where I'm like, oh man, this is just the way they're building this up is just incredible. And like I said, the payoff sucks in Ragnarok. It really does. Like with Thor, what happens? Okay, major spoilers. Just in case you're still watching and you haven't finished Ragnarok. So you fight Thor twice. The first fight with Thor was fine. I was really hoping something would happen, but it didn't. I was like, okay, well, whatever. We'll get to fight him later. Second time you fight Thor, you defeat him, and I'm like, okay, finally. How are we going to get rid of Thor? And then Kratos just stops and say, "We must be better than this." That's a terrible voice. What voice did I do for the review? "We must be better than this," or something like that. And this is a quote that's repeated several times throughout the game, and it gets tiring. It's just a message just forced down your throat. And Thor's like, okay, well, we can be better than this. And then Odin just pops up saying, hey, why are you talking? Kill him. Kill him. And then Thor's like, no, we must be better than this. It's just laughably bad. I'm probably not citing the lines exactly, but it was just so cringy to me. I'm sorry. And so Odin's like, okay. And he just stabs Thor through the chest. And then his daughter's right there seeing it. And he reaches out towards his daughter as he just simply just disappears. He dematerializes. I'm like, why is he dematerializing? He obviously has blood and guts. Why is he just turning into a pixie dust? And it's oh man, just describing it is just oh man. Why was this handled so poorly in the game? But anyway, that was just an example of just how just anticlimactic everything was. Why couldn't it just be better? My God. Why couldn't Thor just be like, screw you, Kratos, and just Kratos just pulls his head off with his backbone sticking out. God of War is no longer gory like it once was. I used to look forward to the devouring of enemies in God of War, and then they just kind of turn it into a PG-13 sort of deal. God of War Ragnarok does not feel like an M-rated game. They need to slap that M rating off and put PG and put T for teen, because it is not the gory brutalness from the PS2, PS3 era. It's just not that game anymore, and that's one reason why I just don't like it. But like I said, the world does win because of just the simple tension, regardless of the anticlimactic results. And Elden Ring is basically just the player choosing how they want their story to go. And I basically, when I play through Elden Ring, I have a very basic story in my mind, but my heart is never throbbing because of the tension of the story. I hope that makes sense to everyone. So Elden Ring 2, God of War 2. Gameplay. Now, this is going to be a simple one. And this is what I wrote. I'm going to be blunt and hand this to Elden Ring easily. The gameplay in Ragnarok is great, but falls flat for me personally, especially with the amount of potential it has combat-wise. I found myself extremely bored of the tediously bloated encounters in Ragnarok, which little to no encouragement to keep playing after the credits. Okay, this is a big one. So, obviously, From Software games are pretty much top tier. They have set a standard that's almost impossible to beat for me personally right now. Ragnarok, the current state of God of War, isn't what I prefer in gameplay. It's almost there. But there's just so bloated. You got bosses and enemies that have so much health, but only like with a two or three moves, and that's it. It just takes so long to just kill each enemy. Now, Of course, there are difficulty sliders, but that's one thing I hate about difficulty options is because, if you notch it down, it can become too easy. You notch it up, it just becomes tedious. Of course, I don't mind a challenge. Of course not. I mean, just look at my channel. Just look at the stuff I've done. And I definitely appreciate a good challenge, but Ragnarok just wasn't offering what I appreciate in video games when it comes to challenges. I cannot stand hitting an enemy several times that has two or three simplistic moves, and I got to do the same thing for 5 minutes just to get rid of them. It's just not engaging to me. And I just also my attention span goes crazy. I start thinking about dinosaurs or something when I'm fighting. If I'm daydreaming in the middle of a boss fight, that boss fight is not engaging enough. That boss fight was not designed well enough for me personally. And so that, Elden Ring just simply wins. I mean, what can I say? And God of War Ragnarok's combat encounters do not change much at all. It tries to throw something interesting in at the end of the game, and I did appreciate the first encounter of that, but the second encounter, for some reason, I mentioned this in the review. You use your arrows to blow off the shield of this beast, and for some reason in the second encounter the arrows were not working. I had it switched to the right arrows, but when I was pressing square, the shield would not go away sometimes, and it sucked because I had to focus on the beast but also enemies around me, and then I basically just had to rely on luck the entire time because I had a mechanic that wasn't working. And then at the end, when I killed enough enemies, a dragon pops up and starts shooting fire all over the place. And you can't simply dodge out of the way from that unless you're just really lucky. So I had to block. And I hate blocking in video games. I really do. But Ragnarok really designed the game around having to use your shield sometimes, which sucked. When I block an attack, I just feel like I failed at something that I could have just simply timed and rolled out of the way. But that's just my From Software soul coming out. But thankfully, that encounter allowed me to just run away because there was just no way that I was going to finish that properly because it was just like I said, the mechanic wasn't working. What could I do? And plus, there was a dragon shooting fire everywhere. I'm pretty sure it was designed for you to run away from, and it was so sloppy. It was sloppily designed, and I did not like it. And Elden Ring definitely has its flaws. And one thing I'll definitely get to later with the subcategories, Elden Ring is not 100% perfect, and obviously, like with Moog and the Elden Beast, those two bosses have attacks where you're basically supposed to tank certain attacks, and I'm all for not taking damage by simply rolling out of the way. And with Moog, you got this knee heel attack where he like stabs another dimension, and you just have to take damage. You have to use like some kind of crystal tier. I don't know. I never used that stuff to avoid taking as much damage. So you have to take damage regardless, and it's really silly. It's not a really that's one reason why I haven't reviewed that boss fight yet on the channels, because I absolutely hate that attack. It's not that I can't do it. I just don't like taking damage because it's not a good motivator to keep pressing on, because I feel like I fail, but the game is designed for me to take damage, but it's just not a good combination. And it really sucks because a lot of people consider Moog one of their favorite fights. I'm like, how in the world can you consider it your favorite fight if you're taking mandatory damage? I don't really get it. I guess I don't know. Maybe I should just review it anyway and just say, took damage, I don't like this boss, and just move on, I guess. I don't know. All that, I'm going to continue Elden Ring next year. I plan to next year, by the way, with Melania and everything. I still got plenty of bosses to do. I just needed to play other games. I had to take a break from Elden Ring because Elden Ring was just totally taking over my life, because it is probably the best game I've ever played, and I had to step away from it. I wanted to play more stuff like Lego Brick Tales and Frogun. And then, of course, Ragnarok. I stepped away a moment to play Stray. But as you know, Ragnarok and Stray were extremely disappointing to me personally. So, yeah. What else? What else happens in Ragnarok? I'll bring back the cinematic padding. It's just, there's this place called Ironwood where you get to ride on a yak. And this is, if you watch most reviews, I think most reviews mention this. There's a place called Ironwood where you ride on top of a yak, where it feels like for hours, with bland enemy encounters in between. and it just really sucks. It just you're just not doing anything but just a bunch of fest probably the worst fetch quests I've seen in gaming, and they just throw it in there. And then you got more fetch quests with Atreus helping Odin get pieces of a mask, and it doesn't even lead up to anything. The whole game it just leads up to nothing, absolutely nothing. And man, all right. Anyway, obviously Elden Ring wins gameplay. So Elden Ring 3, Ragnarok 2. We're on number 6, level design. Ooh. All right, this is what I wrote. Ragnarok had a great start at the beginning of the game, but it eventually turned into a mundane and formulaic layout, and some areas being complex, but overall was terribly designed in my opinion. Elden Ring has its weak moments in this category, but totally nails it most of the time. I've mentioned this before. I won't drag on this one too long because I feel like I've addressed it enough already. But yeah, Elden Ring all the way through has incredible level design. And it does have weak moments. I can't think of them exactly. That's how great the level design. Okay, I guess some of the dungeons and just the dungeons and the caves can get a bit weak at times, but that's it. Everything else is just beautiful, basically. There are a lot of repeat designs sometimes, but it's hardly noticeable because just the rest of the world is so beautifully designed. And Ragnarok, like I mentioned before, the Dwarf Village was great. The rest of the game just feels Fisherprice with just linear straight paths with uninteresting aspects in combat. And so, all right, we're moving on. Elden Ring 4, Ragnarok 2. Number 7 is characters, and you might be surprised by this one. What I wrote was, I love the characters in Ragnarok so much. The design and personalities are incredibly addicting, and for the most part, Elden Ring mostly sticks with the same standing, leaning, or crouching NPCs that don't really stand out as well, like they did in previous From Software games. Ragnarok gets a point for this. I can already hear the From Software fans going like, what? And once again, it's close. Because I do love how the characters just leave you alone in Elden Ring, where you just and otherwise Ragnarok, you have to follow NPCs around sometimes, and it sucks. But I'm not going to take that away from how awesome the characters are. Each character tells a story from what they're wearing. One character has an incredible development. Major spoilers: Brock dies, and Sindri just turns into a totally different character. He turns and this is like probably the best story moment in the game because something actually happens. And it was really predictable too, because throughout the entire game I was like, when is Brock gonna die? He's got to die. And they're just building it up for him to die. It's just there's no way around it. And so when he finally died, I was like, okay, well that finally happened. It was about time. And I just didn't expect the one thing I definitely didn't expect was Sindri's drastic change in character. He just turns into a totally depressed and angry person that just hates Atreus. And he ends up just killing Odin at the end because Atreus converts Odin's soul into like a marble or something, or a wooden marble. And Kratos is like,
I'm not going to take anything. I'm not taking anything else from you, Freya.
Because he teams up with Freya later. Freya's like, oh, I don't want this. And and then Atreus takes it, and Atreus like, so what do we do with it? Or I can use my really dramatic, my exaggerated little boy's voice. So what are we gonna do with this wooden ball, Daddy? And so Sindri takes it like, I'll take it, and he places it on the stone table and just smacks it into dust. Like, there. Now it is done. No, terrible impressions, by the way. I'm just doing stupid voices just for fun. And so, the characters are really fun in Ragnarok. I just wish there was a better story around them. Elden Ring, once again, is just typical From Software characters, and none really, other than the bosses, none of the characters really stood out to me personally. And they're still great and everything, and they are designed very well, and they have their own stories, of course. But Ragnarok it's a lot better in this department. All right, we're just gonna go ahead and move on. Elden Ring 4, God of War Ragnarok 3. All right, so the in number 8, I didn't expect to see this one from the website I was at, but challenge and reward. So I was like, yeah, all right, that'll be an easy one. What I wrote was, okay, first of all, the difficulty has always been spongy in God of War, and I absolutely cannot stand difficulty options. With that said, Ragnarok is probably the easiest God of War game, main campaign wise. The side quests, from what I've heard, have crazy bosses, but I do not know much on why. However, the obvious choice is Elden Ring because From Software has perfected this recipe in general just due to the impact on the topic alone has had in gaming. I felt immense satisfaction all the way through Elden Ring, but not once in Ragnarok did I get a sense of accomplishment even remotely close. So that really wraps up how I feel. I don't really have anything else to add on to that. From Software has perfected this challenge and reward recipe that they have established from Demon Souls and all the way up to Elden Ring. It's just perfect. And I couldn't ask for anything else. God of War just still relies on spongy enemies and just spam focused combat in order to achieve a goal, and it's just not interesting to me. I appreciate Ragnarok cinematically, but skillfully, I just most of the time I just find it bland. Once you kind of just figure out how to accomplish a tough scenario, that's pretty much just the same thing for everything else. You just run around, throw your axe, and just to wipe out smaller enemies, and then one-on-one, even one-on-one battles is just boring. You just kind of just sit there and slash at them, and then they attack, and then you go back and slash at them again, and then their stun bar comes up. It's just not for me. And I guess some people can argue that Elden Ring is bland, but I really do not personally see how. Elden Ring just has so many unique challenges and unique bosses. You can't fight every single boss the same way. I mean, it just doesn't happen in Elden Ring. And so it's just a weak argument from that other side. All right, so moving on. Let's see, we're at 40 minutes. Oh, good time. So Elden Ring 5, Ragnarok 3. Story. All right, now this one might sound contradicting, but this is what I wrote. I really, I really thought Ragnarok would dominate this category. I was really hoping for a heart-throbbing thrill, though the story was a complete wreck with safe plot directions and a lot of anticlimactic build-ups. The story in Elden Ring is a bit opaque, but effective. Personally, I have never cared much about the lore in the From Software games, but Ragnarok disappointed me so much that I cannot reward that kind of story structure. And that's very true. I think I get very detailed with these last ones for some reason. Yeah, I truly thought Ragnarok was going to blow Elden Ring out of the water when it comes to story, but it just... How in the world did they screw up the story in Ragnarok? Why did they go with the whole, what's a good comparison? Morgan from The Walking Dead. The entire time I was playing Ragnarok, I just kept thinking about Morgan's story for The Walking Dead, where he doesn't want to kill anybody anymore. He's got this stick, and he just uses it as a walking stick, and then eventually just go back to his killing ways. I'm like, man, if only they, did that with Kratos instead of just him being, wimpy about not being. Since when does Kratos care about being worshipped? I don't remember that. Hold on, let me adjust my leg here. I've had my leg in the same position for 40 minutes. So, in the game, Odin's like, why do you even want to dress yourself as the god of war? Has anyone ever worshipped you? And then at the end, Kratos sees himself as a golden idol with people worshiping him. And he's like very emotional about it. I'm like, come on, Kratos, you don't care about this stuff? Why do you care about being worshipped? And it just made no sense with the character to me. I mean, I don't know. It is so conflicting because I'm like, the writers. I don't know. I don't write for Kratos, and I feel like I shouldn't be judging the writers for how they write Kratos. But I just don't feel like the same person. I mean, the same person isn't writing for Kratos anymore. It's just obvious. David Jaffe had the best version of Kratos in my opinion, and David Jaffe's gone. I don't think they consult with him anymore. And they just verging off into turning into Kratos into some kind of more human with emotions sort of character, and it just sucks. I mean, I guess the dad and son thing is fine, but him getting emotional because people are going to end up worshiping him according to the, the drawings in a cabinet I just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't like the direction it's going in, and I don't really. I just, like I mentioned in the review, I'll probably just end up watching a playthrough on YouTube, and if I don't like it, I'll just simply turn it off and play Elden Ring. So, so yeah. What was it on story? So yeah, Elden Ring wins just because I would much rather prefer to create my own story in Elden Ring than to watch Ragnarok story again. There are several cinematic beats I would love to experience again on YouTube. I'm not going to play the game again to experience them. I'm just going to go on YouTube and look up a very specific scene. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a cinematic that I really loved in Ragnarok that I would love to actually play again. And this is it's the scene where Atreus climbs up Asgard's wall, and I'm like, why could this is the first time where climbing actually felt immersive and thrilling. And I'm like, why in the world did they not make the rest of the cinematics this way? This works extremely well, and the visual with him talking to Heimdall, while Heimdall's holding his hand while he's eating an apple, asking him why he's there. He's like, "Does this wall not give the vision of keep out? Why are you climbing this wall?" Trey's like, "Odin sent me," and it's like, well, if he sent for you, then why aren't you here right now instead of having to climb the wall? And Trey's like, maybe it's a test, and is I mean, the dialogue's a lot better than what I just said, but the cinematic visuals was fantastic, and the climbing for once was fantastic, and that scene alone, could win if it wasn't for how bloated the game was. The game needs to cut out like 50%, and it would be a well-paced game, and I would definitely appreciate it more, but the game is just way too long. It feels way too long. It feels a lot longer than 25 hours that I experienced. So I'm not going to go into what stories I create for Elden Ring. I just appreciate the structure a lot more than Ragnarok. So moving on, Elden Ring 6, God of War Ragnarok 3. Number 10, Lasting Appeal. This is what I wrote. This includes replay value and uniqueness of the game. Elden Ring simply wins in a landslide just due to the unlimited build possibilities and encouraging challenges to keep improving on. Ragnarok, with its cinematic padding and hand-holding, doesn't encourage me to play ever again, unfortunately. Each encounter basically has the same combat solution, which is very boring to me, and simply adjusting the difficulty higher just makes it more so tedious. And yeah, the hand holding is really bad in Ragnarok. I just feel like a baby playing it because it's just the puzzles are atrocious. You can't even turn it off. What a lot of people were doing, they were muting their TV, turning off subtitles just so the puzzles simply wouldn't get spoiled. And there's so many puzzles that are the same, and it just sucked. Right before I played Ragnarok, I saw a lot of reviewers talking about how bad the puzzles were, and I was like, no, why? And they mentioned how the characters were just spoiling it 10 seconds in. I was like, what? So I don't know what they're going to do. They got to add something, but it doesn't matter to me anymore because I'm not going to play Ragnarok again. It's just going to sit on my shelf, basically. And I hate to say that because I really wanted to love that game. I can't even justify putting it in my top 5 for this year. I'm going to have to spend next year playing games from this year to make a complete top 5 because I can't put Stray either because I didn't like that game also. I'll have to make hopefully I can make a podcast with a guest talking about my top 5 favorite games. My top favorite games of 2022. I can never. It's really hard for me to get a top 5 for any year. I don't think I was able to get top 5 for last year either. So it's just my preferences, my very picky preferences. And so yeah, Elden Ring has unlimited replay value in my opinion. When I hear a lot of people say, "Oh well, I went through Elden Ring and I'm pretty much done now," I'm like, "Huh? You're done? All right." More for me, because Elden Ring, there's so many possibilities. You got so many weapons, you got so many ways to approach boss fights. I'm like, how in the world can you just be finished? I mean, I understand moving on and playing other games, but I guess for my case, I just there's so many games I just do not like, and so when a game like Elden Ring that simply becomes the best game ever played comes out, I just want to. I mean, I just find so many things I want to do in it. I guess that's just it. If there's a game you absolutely love. It just has inherently it has unlimited replay value, but Elden Ring clearly has more stuff to do in it, refining how you fight boss fights. When I was doing my no damage, no heads up display. Sorry about that. My wife walked in. I'm gonna wrap this up. I really only want to make these videos like an hour long at first, but I'm right here at the end. So I got like what 10 minutes left. So anyway, I totally forgot what I was on. But yeah, Elden Ring has infinite replay value just because I love it so much, and plus there's so many tools. There's really no arguing against it. You cannot compare infinite. You can't repair. You can't compare. Well, I mean, you can compare. It's just there's no way Ragnarok can win in replay value when it's compared to Elden Ring. There's just too many possibilities of different approaches in Elden Ring. In Ragnarok, you pretty much just do the same thing. Every time, and there you can refine how you fight bosses, which is just true for any game. It's just kind of the standard of having to scratch the bottom of the barrel. And so in the end of that, those 10 key comparisons, of course Elden Ring wins. Elden Ring gets 7 and Ragnarok gets 3, and those last few well, yeah, the last few really helped Elden Ring out. Man, I won't be able to get to the comments. I'm running out of time. Shoot. So anyway, here are the subcategories. Dual boss fights. Ragnarok wins. Elden Ring needs to take notes from Ragnarok because the dual fights in Ragnarok were absolutely fantastic. I was so surprised every time I came up against a dual fight. It was massively better than what Elden Ring ever did. And it's weird because From Software has made great duo fights before, but for some reason in Elden Ring they really slacked. I don't know what in the world happened with their duo fights. Dialogue, Elden Ring. There was more memorable dialogue in Elden Ring, in my opinion. Ragnarok had they had some memorable lines, but most of it was cringy. I think the worst one was Atreus was just saying he was with this girl, and combat wise he was like, "Oh man, I'm just lucky," and she's like, "No, you're just Loki," and it's so cringy every time I hear it. It was cute the first time, but after the second time I'm like, ugh, that's nasty. Bosses, Elden Ring. I mean, what the heck? Of course, Elden Ring wins in the boss category. Ragnarok just I think my favorite boss fight in Ragnarok was Heimdall, and I think it's only because it felt like a God of War boss from the old games, and that's it. Thor was great, but I don't know. It was fine. Thor was good, and of course the duo boss fights were fine. But you just can't. You just cannot say Ragnarok has better boss fights than Elden Ring. It's just unless cinematically, I guess cinematically Ragnarok will win. But I'm focusing on gameplay because gameplay is number one with me. World traversal, Elden Ring. You can just simply warp somewhere at any moment. And also the level design is fun to navigate through. Ragnarok has terrible level design, most of the time. And you have to walk up to a warp gate to go anywhere, and then you have to go through a loading realm. It takes forever to get somewhere. It was just why God of War Ragnarok should have been a PS5 game, just so the loading would have been faster and more accessible. I cannot find myself exploring Ragnarok when the loading just takes way too long to get somewhere. Cover art goes to Ragnarok, actually. I didn't like the Elden Ring cover art. I thought it was really bland. Just very ordinary looking. At least Ragnarok looks somewhat okay. I mean, it looks like a typical movie poster. It's not that great, but I do like looking at it more than Elden Ring, I guess. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that in there. Secrets, Elden Ring. There's just so many secrets in Elden Ring that the game doesn't point you to, saying, "Oh, look over there, look over there." Elden Ring, everything's a mystery. You got to go find it yourself. Ragnarok, of course, is a typical game where it's like, "Oh, there's stuff over there. Make sure you don't miss that." Metrovania aspects definitely goes to Ragnarok because I don't think Elden Ring really has anything other than just killing a boss to access other places. So there's not. I know it's a weird subcategory, but it's just something I want to throw in there just so Ragnarok can win a point, a sub point. Cutscenes, Ragnarok wins. I enjoy watching the cutscenes a lot more than Elden Ring. Elden Ring has some good cutscenes, but Ragnarok definitely has a lot of great cinematic display and presentation. Sorry about that. Another interruption by my wife. Thank you. All right, so I told her I'm about to wrap up. So yeah, cutscenes win for Ragnarok, whatever. So yeah, that was the comparison for Elden Ring versus Ragnarok. So I'm going to at least squeeze in a few comments from people. This one guy said, and of course, my comments always get downvoted to oblivion, which I don't care. I mean, I really do not care. I think it's hilarious. My takes are not popular on Reddit, of course, because there's a lot of people on there that expects you to sugarcoat everything, and so this is from the gaming subreddit. Um, so I wanted to display a neutral section of Reddit. I just didn't want to go on PlayStation where people are like, all against Elden Ring and all for God of War, and I didn't want to read comments from Elden Ring because people are more for Elden Ring and people are against God of War Ragnarok. So I picked gaming. This one person says, "Why do people feel the need to endlessly compare the two?" One guy responded, "Because they're in rate for the Game of the Year stuff." But I responded with, "Because it's fun." I got like 9 downvotes just because I said it's fun. What in the world? Why in the world am I downvoted just because I find comparing two games fun? I don't really understand that. Then he responded with, "We have very different definitions of the word fun." And then I responded, "I guess so, laugh out loud." I don't get it. Can someone explain that one to me? I don't. Comparing video games is really fun because you kind of just get to figure out what parts of the game you like more than the other, and I don't understand the problem with that. So one person said, "The same repetitive post again for the week," and I've been posting a lot of stuff about God of War Ragnarok for the past week, and every single one's been something about something different. One was the review, one was a subject about me talking about this could be the last God of War game I play. I made each post unique, but this person said it was the same post, and I get those every once in a while. This happened on Facebook a lot, where someone was like, "Oh, you keep posting the same thing all the time." Like, how is talking about Untitled Chapter different from talking about Manus, Father of the Abyss? It's just so silly. Next guy say, "It's dumb." Oh heck. This one guy said, "It's dumb to pit these two games against each other. Both are great. End of story." Then I asked why. And then a different person came in and said they're against each other for Game of the Year. I'm like, there's, I could get to a whole spiel on how pointless Game of the Year is because it's nothing but gamer validation and advertisement, and that's all it is. It doesn't mean anything. I didn't even know Game of the Year was a thing until 2019, where Sekiro won, and I only knew that because people were just telling me like, "Oh, Sekiro won." I'm like, "Oh, what does that mean?" I mean, either way you look at it, your favorite game is going to win somewhere. People did that with The Last of Us Part Two. When it won Game of the Year, people are like, you're like, "Well, Ghost of Tsushima won on this one website, so I'm just going to go with that." I'm like, so why does it even matter then? You're going to find your opinion validation somewhere, so why does it even matter? Anyway, moving on. Dang it, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. All right, this other guy said, "I see you chose Elden Ring has better story. I'm waiting for some crap storm of Sony fans. Laugh out loud." Another guy responded, "It has a bigger and better lore, but the story is almost non-existent, as with most From Software games." I responded, "They're already hitting me with silly responses." And then there's always this one guy that doesn't believe that I have responses, and I post this almost everywhere just to get as much feedback as I can. And this one guy, I actually got the most upvotes on this one for some reason. This one guy responded, "I see one person replying to you defending God of War." Then I said, "I have shared this on multiple groups." He said, "Where else?" I said, "The God of War and Elden Ring main groups." And then he said, "So you're surprised, or I guess not surprised, people in the God of War sub are defending God of War. Dang, people love being a victim nowadays." I'm like, what? And and then another guy jumped in saying, "You can love a game and still see its flaws, but I see some of you Sony fans are so silly, it's hard to see it, huh?" And then oh wait, I don't think I've seen this one. Wow, okay, I haven't read this. All right, so these two go back and forth. This one guy called Ugly, and the other one called Palpatine. Let's just say that Palpatine. Ugly guy says, "Should have said some of Sony fans instead of some of you Sony fans. I just hate morons like this. I absolutely love Elden Ring, but I still see its flaws and won't suck From Software and say it doesn't have any. Palpatine says, I wasn't an Elden Ring fan either. I felt like both Ragnarok and Elden Ring exemplified some of the biggest issues with gaming. Ragnarok's hand-holding and Elden Ring's needlessly being an open world. What? That's his complaint about Elden Ring? Okay. Ugly says, can't say about Ragnarok, didn't play it. No PlayStation here. I can somewhat agree with you on Elden Ring on Elden Ring thing, but it brought my love for open world again. Got really depraved from playing so many massive open worlds, and now I got to them again. I'm currently playing Fallout 4, and while it's fun, I feel there's so much hand-holding and markers. I totally agree with what Ugly just said, because open worlds were totally bland for me also, and then Elden Ring comes around and just totally changes everything. And then a different guy comes on, his name's Caviar. He said, you should try Breath of the Wild. Very refreshing open world. Also, you sound kind of bitter towards Sony. Are you missing out on the exclusive? Laugh out loud. Ugly responds, tried Breath of the Wild when I had borrowed a Switch from my friend. It was my first Zelda game, not a fan personally. Even though I hate exclusivity, I'm not really bitter towards Sony when they sponsor them. I'm much rather hater of any type of fanboy, and most fanboys I met were Sony ones. Though I miss out on exclusives, I could say that I'm only somewhat disappointed that Bloodborne and Demon Souls aren't on PC, and I can't think of even 5X's I'd want to play from PlayStation. Okay, I would disagree a long time ago about just not owning a PlayStation. It doesn't really make any sense not to own a PlayStation. PlayStation is it's just, in my opinion, the best console to have right now. And you're kind of fooling yourself if you just disagree with that. And I think, in my opinion, PCs are very flawed, and they don't get good ports. There are just too many problematic aspects of a PC. But PlayStation, they do, arguably have really good games. But as of lately, I don't know if I can really agree with that, because Sony they're just following this Last of Us formula. And I love The Last of Us, but why are other games just constantly copying it? I want to see more uniqueness. God of War is just straight up copying The Last of Us, and it's just not really that engaging to me anymore. So anyway, that's all I wanted to read off, and I hope everyone enjoyed this solo riffing off subject. I couldn't get to the other subject I wanted, which was the Elden Stars response, which is also on Reddit. But I had a lot of fun. I'm glad I could definitely carry on for an hour. With no problems. I'm surprised I was able to let it stretch this out for an hour, and I definitely want to do more of these, because I'm probably not gonna clip this, because it's just a huge topic spread all the way throughout. So if people want to listen to the whole thing, they can. I'm just not gonna bother clipping it. I just want to save clipping for podcasts, and so the next podcast I believe is going to be with a YouTuber called Storm. We plan on recording tomorrow, so definitely keep an eye out for him. He creates incredible videos. Definitely check out his channel. I'll go ahead and put his channel in the description, and for this video, he made this one incredible Shadow of the Colossus video that I highly recommend. I just these small channels really need more attention, because there's so much writing that they put in. What is this crap popping up? And they just definitely need more attention and more responses, and so they can be encouraged to create more videos. And that's just the thing. You got all these big channels they're loud and they cuss all the time, and it's just personally I don't find it engaging. We need more essay focused, passion YouTubers making videos, and that's why I want to get a lot of these names out there, because these people, these YouTubers, they create such incredible videos, but they're just hidden away by just so many other formulaic videos. So anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed this topic, and like I said, I'm hoping to make another one. I would love to make one once a week, just talking about gaming news in general, and just posts that I made and the responses I get. And hope everyone has a great weekend. I don't know when I'm going to post this, so just have a great week in general, and I'll I'll just rant on another time.